I'm leaving my fiance and his mother behind despite knowing they can't afford the rent.
Put them on the streets and let them fend for themselves. They will survive and learn some things about nature.
Throwaway because my fiance follows my main. Me, female 29, and my ex, fiance, male 27, have been living together for 1.5 years. My fiance got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple of years, and decided to get an MBA, which is how we ended up living in our city. By the way, this comes from Throwaway Move Away 129, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. So we moved in together after he finished his MBA program. My fiance is from the Midwest, and his mom has always wanted him to move back to the Midwest. When he told her that he was staying here, she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international city with multiple locations in the US and internationally. I love my job. I love the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During the vid, my office shut down and we all went work from home. After the vid, they decided not to reopen the office, so I've been 100% work from home since early 2020.
And that sounds like a win.
Not bad.
Not bad, not bad.
I currently make considerably more than him.
All right, flex on him.
Mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had an office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this, I was paying 2/3 of the rent. He was paying a 1/3 because but we split everything else 50-50. So the problem started this past May. My fiance's mom told him that she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so she figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that, I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured it would be just for a couple of months over the summer. Since I thought it would be only for a couple of months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom, and my fiance bought a bed for the 2nd bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. Opie says she and I have been really struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full time. She constantly interrupts me while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she interrupts me when I'm on team calls. She asks me to take her places because she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making my fiance help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are really wearing me down, and I hate having my office shoved in the corner of a bedroom. Back in September, I told my fiance, since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while, we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has chosen to conserve money until she has a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying for a bedroom that I can't use.
OP's paying for it. Then he should pick up the slack.
Absolutely. So finally, he said we could do 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Yeah, because it's not just the money, it's her overstepping. Every time I complain about her or the situation, he says he agrees, but doesn't know what to do because he can't punt out his mom.
Because he's a little mama's boy that can't even fold his own clothes.
My mommy just made some undies for me to wipe my tears because...
Boundary, grow up. Also, yeah, again, I think like every time that we've seen a guy that doesn't fold his clothes, that is the first red flag of many.
Right now, we need to swap boundaries for laundries.
Folding out your boundaries and folding up your laundry.
He won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask about what his long-term plan is, he always says, I don't know.
Dude, he's a piece of laundry flowing in the wind.
I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her that she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting his mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate at the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her.
I mean, it's gotten to that point.
I think it has.
OP has let her husband know, like, hey, I can't live in these conditions anymore. I got work. It's unclear whether she's had like the full conversation, but she's definitely brought it up to the husband a bunch of times. Husband has not made a plan. So I feel like OP has to make a plan. And I can't imagine that this moving out doesn't damage the relationship, you know?
It's not even necessarily an ultimatum, which is kind of nice. It's like, hey, look, I just need my space and everything else. I've been paying 2/3 of the rent, all this stuff. I just need to get my own space if you can't even talk to your mom.
I feel like this is more of a decision just for OP to be able to work and to be able to think. But I think in this space, she might realize this fiance might not need to turn into a husband.
OP says, I can afford to pay my part of the rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it is doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay 1/3 of the rent each, there's no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do. But I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the a-hole for leaving them like this. We have an update, but Sam, what is the verdict? Is OP the a-hole for doing this?
I don't think you go straight to divorce, or pre-divorce rather, but I do think you take this move. I think pumping the brakes for sure on whatever wedding is impending and letting OP figure out his mom's situation maybe on his own, because it seems like he's just been kicking down the can and he's just been like, oh, OP will cover it. Do you want to be in a relationship like that?
And I think like OP, Loki kind of has to do something like this to make him see like, this is really affecting me. Like, I literally want to move out to have my space back because of this situation.
I'm thinking, nah.
Like, don't marry?
Don't marry. Hold off the wedding.
And also, OP's not the a-hole for doing this. I think kind of a elegant solution. Well, we have an update. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, and honestly, I got overwhelmed. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of a bit harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my soon-to-be ex and his mom take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more, which it's tough, but hey, you reach that point and you're like, okay, let me advocate for myself and recognize, what's fair for you. This past weekend, I got my soon-to-be ex alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been because his mom always tries to tag along when we do anything.
Dude, you don't have a relationship anymore. You have a throuple with your mom.
That is unfortunately true.
And again, everyone was getting on my case about saying Mama wants a piece. But do you see what's happening now? Mama is getting her piece.
Mama wants a whole cake.
Mama wants a whole cake. She is moving in on this relationship. And not just in the house, but on this relationship too. You got to get that fiending dog away from your relationship.
I've been going through everyone's comments and the personal messages people sent that really helped me decide on how I should approach this. And also brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. But back to the discussion with my ex. I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mom. Not because I thought he would, but because I wanted to be able to tell myself I gave him the opportunity. I like that.
It's like not an ultimatum, but it is an ultimatum.
I explained again how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions, and how unhappy and uncomfortable I am being forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago, I was paying the majority of the rent and that I make so much more money than him.
Dang, dude, slap it down.
That it's really my salary keeping us afloat. I also brought up again the way she treats me and talks to me. He replied the same way he always has been. He agrees. It's not right how she acts and that it's really uncomfortable for all of us. What the F? I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously, I would have dropped it there. But this time, I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she moved in and how unfair it was that I'm still paying half when there are 3 people living there and she's the only one with her own bedroom.
That is a good point.
OP wanted to be like, hey, there's 3 people, let's split it 3 ways. So OP's like, oh, I want to pay 33%. And then fiance's like, no, pay 50% still. We could literally track the percentages. She's literally been giving way percentage more. I got the same story. She has to conserve monies and she doesn't have any income currently, which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved and what money she uses for incidentals. So evidently, when she got divorced, she asked for the divorce after my ex went to college. It doesn't sound like her husband / my ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house, and my ex-fiance didn't have any idea how much that was or how much of it is left. But until she moved here, she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much.
Where's the money? You should be using that money to pay your fair share instead of just mooching.
Now, other than that, X didn't have much insight into her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month. And from now on, I am only paying 25%. As some commenters pointed out, she has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child, so she should have to pay twice as much.
I see OP turning. She's saying man-child. She's getting out.
My question is, why are we still at 25%? I guess she's like, oh, like I agreed to do the lease and there's like that good faith or whatever. But it's like, dude, he did this to himself. Pay 0% until you're willing to actually work on this. And I'll gladly come back if we can like get her out or like do something. I'm paying 0% and living with my friend.
Yeah, I mean, this is 25% would be when they would even renew that she would be on the lease for?
Basically, the situation is like, so OP moves in with her friend. She keeps paying 25% towards their old apartment. I'm like, pay 0%.
Let them figure it out. Get a new apartment that's a lot cheaper. Let them get a 1-bedroom.
Yes, he created this problem, so he's going to have to solve it.
And then maybe once he cleans it up, he will become the man that is deserving of a relationship with you. But right now, he's not that man, and he has not cleaned up one little thing. Expect more from your men. Put the bar a little higher.
On to the next part. After I move out, I'm not paying for anything else. No utilities, no food, no nothing other than the rent, the 25%. I have a pretty good idea of what his finances are like. And if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself, it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries, there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st, but it's not late until it's on the 5th. So he has 2 days to come up with the shmoney. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I will reduce the amount I pay in future months. So she's like, if I do pay extra to help cover you today, I'm going to take that out of what I'm paying in the future.
We're progressing towards 0, which is good.
The only reason that I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is that even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, i.e. one contract we both assigned, as opposed to 2 separate contracts we signed individually, we are both responsible for the rents. If he doesn't make the rent, OP could face the consequences. They don't care who actually pays it as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself or together with his mom.
But you know what? Let him go get a crappy apartment. Also, like, is this not a turnoff? I'm confused. Why are you holding on to this relationship? This is like the biggest red flag of all time. Like, what does he have here?
I think OP gave him the big chance. She's like, all right, I'm going to move out. It had been 3 months overdue. She's like, let me lay it all out one final time. There comes that point where you're like, you got to call it at some point.
Maybe he's the nicest, best in bed guy ever, and that's what's clouding your judgment right now. But again, don't let that cloud your judgment from the facts of like, this is not an adult man that I think you can have an adult relationship with. That is a teenage boy that can't fold his own clothes. Needs his mommy around.
I wholeheartedly agree. But in all likelihood, he wouldn't be able to pass a credit check on his own for getting a lease. So I am kind of stuck here. I don't think he'll do anything stupid, though, because he's going to need to find some place to live after this, and a collection on his credit report would not be good. I also told him that I'm going to go find some place to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said that I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in-person 9-to-5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mom, I'm not about to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it, I'll get a membership at one of those co-working type spaces. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, valuables, and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. So you might be thinking, Sam Keanu, what about fiance? How do you think he's handling it? Like a champion?
No, like a little baby.
He's like, you're going to critique me? Yeah.
So he really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mom and everything. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed that I wanted to take care of her as much as him. And he kept saying stuff like, well, what about my mom? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is. But we still need to help her.
We've been prioritizing her for the last 6 months. How about prioritizing us? You're not going to have a wife to be if you keep prioritizing mama.
So he asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I move out, I need some space from him. In a few months, when we've both had some time and space to process about what happened, if we both agree, we can then talk about our relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mom. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together.
I like that. I think giving the people that you are close to the opportunity to change generally is a good idea, even though that opportunity may set them up for failure, which I think is what's going to happen in this case.
I told him that he needs to tell his mom because she's not my responsibility or problem, and she'll know something's up when I start moving my stuff out. Mom doesn't even know yet. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend, I'm going to start moving my things. So my friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd. So in reality, I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad other than sulk and complain. But if he does something stupid or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I'll tell the leasing office his mom moved in, which is prohibited in the lease.
There we go.
The point we've come to. So sad. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat, I think. By the way, if you think it's a valid threat that we have over 2,000 episodes, it's the most valid threat you've heard in your life. Because if you go to Spotify, Apple, or your favorite pod app, you're going to experience all 2,000 episodes of that goodness for your ear holes.
Blasted into your brain. Imagine a fire hose, your open brain, and a fire hose of our voices for as long as you darn well please.
It'll never run out. Opie says, now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mom, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on.
If he tells her, it's like, yeah, why has OP's stuff moved? Oh, she's just spring cleaning.
And if things get too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So that's it. I'm leaving and I don't really care how it affects them. So it was kind of a crap show, but I've moved out and I am off the lease. And future mother-in-law is on the lease now, and she and ex's dad are covering half the rent, and soon to be ex is covering the other half. Last week, I started working out of my friend's apartment, the one that I'm moving in with, so I didn't see ex's mom on Monday. Tuesday around lunch, she sent me a text asking where I was. I told her I was working and I'd be home late tonight. She replied that ex told her that I wasn't going to be contributing as much, so she had to loan him money for the rent. That wasn't a surprise to me, so I just replied with a emoji. I had plans with my friend and her roommate, who I'm also friends with, to go out for dinner and then get some drinks. So by the time I got home, it was after midnight and my ex's mom was already asleep. The fun started Wednesday morning. I was getting ready to go to work at my friend's place when my ex's mom stopped me and said that we need to discuss my financial situation. Then she went on a whole tirade about her having to cover my part of the rent and me making foolish choices by going out to dinner when I couldn't even pay the rent. I was irresponsible with my money and inconsiderate of the impact it had on others. Blah, blah, blah. She went on to say that if she was going to have to pay my share of the rent, that she expected me to do a better job of keeping on top of chores and keeping the apartment clean and organized. I told her that I was moving out since obviously soon-to-be ex hadn't told her yet. She seemed, I don't know, pleased with herself. All she had to say was, maybe that's for the best. There's one thing they can agree on.
I wonder, is the mom intentionally trying to sabotage this relationship?
I mean, it's a mama's boy, obviously.
When I got home that night, right off the bat, she wanted to talk. She said instead of me moving out, we could get a bigger apartment and she'd be willing to help by paying the difference between a 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. Then we could go back to the arrangements ex and I had before she moved in, me paying 2/3 of the balance and him paying 1/3.
She's like, all right, I have a solution. Let's get a bigger place where you still pay for 2/3.
She's like, hey, you know how you're only paying like $1,500 right now? I'm willing to help, but let's make you pay $2,000 now.
Also, I want 2 rooms. I'm so glad OP's leaving. You cannot marry someone who has a monster-in-law if they don't put boundaries up against the monster.
When she was saying this, I think my brain vapor locked. She was making it sound like she was doing us a favor by offering to pay the increase in the rent. But apparently, this man-child who tells his mom literally every single thing about our lives and relationship hadn't bothered to tell his mom about how much I was actually contributing. It seems like once she discovered that X wasn't paying for everything like she thought, she wasn't as excited about me moving out. He also was like, oh, I'm covering.
Dude, send him away. Hey, at the very least, we found more reasons that we shouldn't be in a relationship.
I tried to be polite, and I told her I'd already given notice to our apartment complex that I was moving out at the end of the month and already committed to move in with my friend. She kept pushing the issue and said if she was willing to pay the difference, I should just stay because that would really be best for everyone. By then, I was getting annoyed and told her that because of the way she had been acting and treating me, I had no interest in living with her anymore. That's when the best line of this whole dumpster fire came out of my mouth. She said that she was worried I was taking advantage of her son.
Get out of here.
We're using our therapy right now, our meditation, to stay calm and centered on this one. And if we had told her about our financial arrangement, she would have been more understanding of why I wasn't keeping up with the apartment. I told her maybe a good lesson from this is to try being nice to everyone in the future and not just the people you think can help you.
Why don't you take your own advice?
And I asked her why she didn't help out more since she didn't do anything productive all day. She did not like either of those comments.
The apple does not fall from the tree.
And it got pretty hostile with both of us yelling at each other. And to be fair, we both said some pretty awful things to one another. Finally, I told her I was going to inform the rental office that she had been living there contrary to the lease agreement because getting evicted would be worth it to see her living on the street. I grabbed my laptop and went to my friends. I didn't even bother packing an overnight bag.
Does that get a little bit too much, the living on the street thing? I think like we don't want her living on the street, but we do want OP away from it. And if she is going to live on the street based on this, that is her own fault.
But next Thursday, my ex texted me and said that he had added his mom to the lease effective the first of the month and that she and his dad, I have no idea how that poor man got roped into this, would pay half the rent and my ex would pay the other half. I confirmed it with the property manager that I was off the lease and that I didn't have any further obligation. I got it in email, so I have a record. Important in writing. I put disconnect orders in for the utilities under my name and told him to call and set up accounts under his name for those. I'm going to lose the damage deposit. It goes to whoever is living there when the lease ends, but it's a small price to pay to be free. On the way home, I stopped and got a bunch of boxes to pack my stuff up. She was pretty hostile when I got home, and when she saw how much I was taking, she got worse.
My son bought everything in this house.
He told me over and over. I ended up taking Friday off to finish packing and Saturday to get some friends to help move some stuff into my new place. I'm going to pay my friends some rent for the next 2 weeks until when I move out. They didn't want me to, but I'm not going to stay in someone's home and not contribute. OP's like, I am not going to become the monster I've run from. If nothing else, living with X and his mom taught me that. Last night, X and I got together and started talking for the first time since Saturday. He said his mom is staying until June when the lease is up, and then she's moving back to their hometown. This was all for nothing.
No, dude, it was not. This was all her plan from the very beginning. From the very beginning, she just wanted her little boy to not be with this lady, not be with OP, and she played her cards brilliantly. This mom ruined a relationship, but honestly, good. I mean, she exposed some terrible things about the relationship. So kind of a win-win. What a freaking masterclass in manipulation on the mom's side. Insane.
Now, according to him, she just really didn't like living here, and that's why she didn't try to find a job. Then he asked how long a break I thought we should take. Have you heard of this thing called infinity? A few commenters gave me a hard time for stringing him along, so I was brutally honest and told him that I could not be with someone that allowed others to treat me the way he allowed his mom to treat me, and that I hope he learned to stand on his own and establish some boundaries.
This is a good learning lesson that he can take into if he has another relationship ever.
Use your noodle. The one upstairs, my friend. He looks like he was going to cry and just got up and left. As far as I'm concerned, this whole thing is over and done. I'm going to call it a learning experience and be glad that I found out how awful X's mom is before we got married. The thing that amazes me is the amount of damage this woman leaves in her wake and how utterly oblivious she is. She destroyed our engagement and relationship, is leaving X in a much worse financial situation, pushed back her ex-husband's retirement by I don't know how many years, since he now has to likely pay off the mortgage or get a second mortgage that he needed to do to pay off her half of the equity. Basically, he had to dump a bunch of money to buy her out of the house. I don't blame you. You just bought your piece, my friend. And she made my life hell for 6+ months. And she's walking away completely unscathed. According to my ex, she's going back to her hometown and just picking up her old teaching job. I'm thinking about going to visit my parents next week and working from their house. I want to tell them how boring and undramatic they are and how much I'm grateful for that and how much I love them for it.
And that's where it ends. That kind of ended exactly how we would have wanted it. We put up boundaries. We communicated clearly and effectively with honesty, even about the hard stuff. And it got you in a better situation, OP, away from this man-child and this monster-in-law. That is where that story ends.